So you and I have anywhere between 60 and 70,000 thoughts every single day. Every single day. Any person, regardless if you think you're overthinking, if you have ADHD, if you don't, if you're, come from a poor background, a rich background, we all have about the same amount of thoughts every single day. By the time you turn around 35 years old, we've memorized beliefs, patterns, perceptions, and just potential strategies in our minds that have helped us to adapt to the environment that we are around, right? Our brains are designed to keep us alive. They're designed to be able to hunt for mammoths and forage for berries. Or if you're vegan, it's there to hang out with mammoths and hunt for berries, whatever. It's not supposed to be able to, work out the mathematics of a black hole. And we've kind of tricked it to do that. So in terms of creating belief structures and stuff as you get older, it's more common because you've found the pathway that you think works for you. Okay. Generally, if by the time you turn 35 years old, 95% of who you are is a set sort of memorized belief structures and patterns and perceptions, right? So by that age, you keep doing that thing and you never really question why. So then if something starts to happen outside of that, it's not in your conscious awareness. So you keep following that pattern, you keep following that pathway, and it's not in your point of vision. So if it's having a bad memory and you believe that it's just inevitable, you've never really questioned it. You've never tried to find the evidence against it. You've never tried to really change it in the right ways that work. You might have tried a couple of things like a crossword puzzle or something for a day.
The standard
but
approach.
You've probably but you've probably never gone through like a 4-week or 5-week memory training program doing mnemonics and visualizations and imagination and creativity and focus training, right? So if you were to do that, you would break the pattern, you would break the belief. But people get stuck in beliefs because it's the way that our brains work. Our brains are pattern recognition devices, pretty much. It sees a pattern in the environment and says, this equals that. I now believe this and go with that. And that's it. And it just keeps doing that. The more times it finds evidence, it just keeps solidifying and condensing and compacting that belief until eventually you find something that's so shocking that completely smashes it. But it generally takes a lot to be able to smash that belief, right? So most people's beliefs are hardwired, and not hardwired in the way that you can't break it, but just deeply compacted to the point where they don't want to change it. So I hope that's kind of like a good answer.
Yeah, no, because it definitely came across in your branding, your social media, was that it can be changed. But you went through, there's a post you put up about eating the berry and how, it's like, this might kill me. But then the second time, I'm still not quite sure about this. And then the third time, and how you eventually got to the point of, I have eaten this berry so many times, I've got the information that proves that this berry's safe. That means I can eat the berry. And how the beliefs are formed. So how do these things get created? Is it when we're younger that we go through an experience and we don't challenge that belief and we just accept that belief about you? Like that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we can't learn something new or whatever it is, we're not technical. Can these things change straight away? Or, what have you found about going into long-term memory, long-term, the RAM thinking? How quickly can we make these changes?
Yeah. So I'll start with the belief structures and creation. So generally children up until around the age of about 7 are in a different state of mind, literally. Their brain waves are much slower. They're generally around a state of theta or alpha. So when you hypnotize somebody, they're generally in a theta state. Like that's where you can kind of implant subconscious information and to change them, right? Just before you go to bed and, your imagination starts to go a bit crazy. Well, that's kind of like theta state.
All the time.
That's the door to from your analytical mind to your subconscious mind. That's when it floods open. Children in really young ages are generally living in that state. They have no ability to connect the dots with rational thought. So whatever you give them, they have no ability to reject that information. So if you give them a truth, they download that and internalize that as if it's true. They aren't able to objectify or subject that information for questioning. It's just is how it is.
Yeah.
So it just goes straight in. If they're playing with, the horses that are on the neck horses with the wooden pole and they're jumping around on a horse, they actually believe they're on a horse. It's not a joke. Like, they actually think they are.
Mm.
So whatever information you're feeding a child, that's how you kind of program a child to be part of the modern world and the people around you. You have to be able to download that information so quickly, that they can't question it. Okay, so by the time they're sort of like 8, 9, 10, they start to get out of that brainwave state, and around 12 or so, they start to get more into what you and I are in, which is beta. So beta is when you and I are awake, and you and I are conscious, and we're having this conversation. We have to think, we have to connect the dots. And what happens with that is we have to draw from the associations that we have. We have to create the beliefs. We have to think, does this work for me or does this not work for me? And we are now having more walls up, we have more guards, and it's a little bit harder to break those patterns and beliefs. But generally, the people, when I work with them, are already in a position of life that they recognize that the beliefs that they have aren't serving them anymore and they're not helping them anymore. So they want to change it. So being aware of them is generally the first step. The change can be in an instant, or it can take time. It just depends on how badly you want to change it, how much pain it would associate to staying or changing it, and how aware you are consistently of it. So most people would prefer to stay in a state of discomfort or a state of pain than they would to step into the unknown, into this something that's new. And most people don't even ever question that. So it needs to create so much pain for them that in an instant they make the decision to break free and change. Unfortunately, it just is how it is. So it really depends on the individual, where they're at in their journey, and how much of a desire they have to change.
So would that be, you mentioned the inner bitch in one of your other posts? Would that be that thing that's, stay in bed, oh, don't be silly, you can't do that? Or because, like, for instance, I've been doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and I love it, best thing I've ever done. You learn self-defense, you made new friends, all this, etc. Second I thought I want to compete, my brain started saying, nope, don't go, don't put yourself out there, people will make fun of you, don't be. And then I went back to when I was bullied in primary school. There's that thing of hide in the shadows, don't step out. Even though I became more confident, cocky, made heaps of new friends, I always held that back. So I always tried to avoid being seen, stepping up at times. And I realized that was a belief I had. So how would we say, if you were using that example, working with somebody who wanted, like yourself, to go and perform guitar solos and things like that, or jiu-jitsu competitions or whatever it is, how do you start working with a client to start breaking that barrier down? And how does it work between, short-term memory and long-term memory? Because I watch a jiu-jitsu performance and I can remember it for a week. 3 days later, I think you said it was something like 70% of what you've just seen goes out your head. How do we start building these things in? Because that's something I struggle with.
Okay. So there's two questions in that. The first one I'll answer, which is, how do you work with somebody who has those limiting beliefs and that inner bitch that comes up to prevent you from doing things you want to do? So I would normally go through a process in NLP, which is timeline regression or timeline reprinting. And what that is you will find the emotion that's holding you down, whatever emotion is you're having day to day. Okay. So say it's the fear of stepping out and doing your jiu-jitsu competition, right? We would trace it back to the first time you ever felt it. And you might think it might have been in the playground with kids in primary school, or it might have even been younger. Okay. And then I would plant you into the situation. I would put you in there and I would get you to speak to that inner child, that inner version of yourself, in a very, very calming, loving way, as if you were separate from him, and check what he really needs in that moment. Okay. And a lot of the time it's they're fearful, or they just want to play, they want to have fun, but they're being stopped from it. And these are really, really deep clues as to why this person and this version of you won't step out into the open. So we go through a process to change that memory in general, right? And then when you start connecting the new emotion, the new feeling, the new insights, and the new wisdom from yourself into your past, so that you can heal the timeline that's coming up to where you are now. And then whenever you come up to a situation where you feel the same feeling, I get you to imagine essentially pulling that inner child out of yourself and saying a very simple phrase, which is, thank you, little Josh. For me, it's little Josh. Thank you, little Josh, but I will take it from here. So you disassociate yourself from the emotion, because the emotion isn't you. It's just something you've learned how to do. It's something you learned how to get you through in certain parts of your life. And it worked long enough, but now it's a pattern that's being overplayed and isn't beneficial. So we have to disconnect it, disassociate, and bring it out and take control into whoever you want to be right now. So whenever you say anything that I'm confident, or I am fearful, you're giving your body a command to take.